All right. Hi, Ryan Pruitt, typical white guy here. Today we're talking about why typical white guy. Where did that title come from? Now, this is one of the first videos I'm making, but I understand it probably won't be the first video you watch of this. One thing I've learned about being creative, entertainer, wanting to do things for other people. Um, One of the tough lessons is it's not about you. Uh, a lot of people get into writing, you know, the drama, the arts, because they have a need to be for attention. But one thing you learn is that people really don't care about you. So if you are watching this video and you probably have seen a couple of the other videos and wondering, who is this guy and what's with the typical white guy thing. So your curiosity has probably led you here. I appreciate that. Um, the title and the idea really comes from Louis C.K., who is one of my favorite comedians. He got taken down. He was the if Harvey Feinstein was the Jackie Robinson of the Me Too movement. He was the first at bat. Uh, Louis C.K. was Larry Doby. He came shortly after him, and history probably won't remember him as much as maybe they could or they should. I can't remember who it was, but they said Harvey Feinstein would probably be the first person to get booed at the Oscar in memoriam segment. But Louis C.K. was is a very funny comedian. He was very real with himself, and in terms of the Me Too movement, he got accused of sexual harassment, of inappropriate workplace behavior. And the amazing thing about it is that he acknowledged what he did. He knew what he did, um, but also that he kind of called it, and it's a little spooky. There's a video of him doing a memorial service for George Carlin, who was his hero, and he talked about that. Louis C.K. talked about being like a normal comic for years, just kind of doing normal, typical white guy humor, but never really getting anywhere with it. And then George Carlin sort of forced him to open up and really look within himself and talk about what was in there. And that's when he became a big star. I mean, he became very successful, and he was hilarious because of how hard he was on himself and how honest he was with himself. And I mean, it's amazing because he joked about being married, and he opened up, or he was talking about being married, and he said, "Yeah, my wife and I, we've been married about 9 years now, so we're pretty much done." And the audience kind of does this shock laugh with him, and sure enough, like within a year, he got divorced. And then it was probably about 2009. He did a comedy show, and he was talking about flying first class, and he said, "Look, right now, my life is a better version of all of you. That's where I'm at right now. Everything you do, I'm doing a better version of it." And then he goes, "But don't worry, it'll all end soon. I've got maybe 4 or 5 more years of this, and then it's just gonna crash." And he pretty much predicted. I mean, I think it was 2008, 2009, and here we are, 2018, and he's gone, and he was right. And I think, being that successful and knowing it will end and knowing it'll probably be your fault that it ended, that's a typical white guy life. It, it, One of the other reasons for that title is because anytime I've ever done any kind of self-analysis. That any time I've looked at what's wrong with me, how can I be better? One thing I always come back to is it's all on me. It's all within me. And really, I feel like only as a white guy in America can you say that. I have every opportunity. I, I feel like if tomorrow, what am I? I'm 44. If tomorrow, and I even wrote a book about this, a story. If tomorrow I woke up and wanted to be a brain surgeon, I could Google the steps, and I would have to make sacrifices and change things and work hard. But if legitimately tomorrow I wanted to be a brain surgeon, it might take me 10, 15 years from now, and I could barely walk down the hospital, but I truly believe that I could do it. That's how lucky I am. And I think Louis C.K. Wherever he's at right now, I'm pretty sure he saved his money because, like I said, he knew it was coming to an end. He knew at some point he was going to catch up with him. And he, and he would, and like I said, and that was part of the jokes too that he did is he talked about how he knew he had it good. Even being him, he knew he had it good. I'm not gonna, I don't want to do his material, but you ask anyone, ask any older, white conservative who doesn't approve of affirmative action, thinks that we don't need affirmative action, that everything, as Louis C.K. said, we passed the Civil Rights Act and everything's been awesome ever since. It's just been wee. Ask that person if, two questions, see which one gets them. Ask your white conservative friends, would you trade tomorrow and you woke up as an African American, do you think your life wouldn't change? Or two, if you had to go back to being 14, 15 and start from that point as an African American living in America, either today, or today or in your time, do you think you would still be where you're at? I lived in New York City for 11 years. I walked a lot of dark streets by myself, sober, drunk. Never had a police even stop me. If anything, to stop me and ask me if I was okay. I see a police car and I think, oh good, I'm okay now. Things are about to get better in whatever situation I have found myself. I can walk into any ER. I can walk into any polling place, into any supervisor of election office, like it's my living room. I was living in Florida, and I had a roommate there that we met during the 2012 Obama campaign. I was a field organizer, and he was a volunteer, and we ended up both wanting to live in Florida, and so we became roommates. And he was from Chicago. He's 10, 11 years older than me, African American, from Chicago. And during summer of 2016, he went home for a few months, and he came back, and we were talking about the election coming up, when all the polls were showing that Hillary Clinton was going to win. Trump had to draw, an inside straight to win. But he said to me, he goes, I'm worried about this election because the people who follow Trump, the people who will vote for Trump, the white working class, the typical white guy, they don't need a lot of motivation to go vote. Voting is an inherent right with us. Um, and he said, he goes, I'm worried that on election day, and he even said the number. I think it was, he said like, what if, what if 80 to 100,000 typical white guys just wake up on election day and decide, I'll go vote today. Then Trump will win because again, the polling place, the voting booth, that's our place. I went and I realized he was right because I early voted in Florida. And I remember I wasn't even going to early vote that day. I just woke up on it was the first day of early voting. It was Monday, and I went in to early vote and just walked in, and the person was like, "Well, do you have your card?" And I'm like, "No." Do you have do you have a second form of ID? No. I'd lived in Florida for 4 years at that point. I knew the rules. I had, I showed them, I think I showed them my ID before they even asked. But it was like, there was an empowering, there was an ownership. Typical white guy walks to a voting place like we own it. And that was what my attitude was get out of my way and let me vote. And I realized that ease that I had is exactly what my roommate was talking about, was his fear. And he was right. The election was decided by 77,000 white working class, typical white guys across three states. You know what? Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan.